Hello and welcome everyone to today's cloud coaching session. Thank you for joining us. My name is Tara Van Cleve and I am a marketing event manager for the developer initiative here at Oracle. Today, we're excited to get hands-on and build a low-code Apex application utilizing object storage APIs. We'll also be recording the session and the link to the recording will be sent to you via email in the next couple of days. If you have any questions during the webinar, we've set up a channel in our developer public Slack called Cloud Coaching North America that you can access at the QR code here or at bit.ly/odevrel_Slack. Once you're in, you'll land in the general channel, and from there, you can search for the webinar channel. We'll also be checking the Zoom chat and Zoom Q&A areas throughout the webinar, and we'll open up for live Q&A after the demo. Today's webcast will be presented by Shane Jayawardene, Staff Cloud Engineer, Sean Cartwright, Code Innovate Program Manager and Staff Cloud Engineer, and Max Grossman, Staff Cloud Engineer. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Shane.
Awesome. Thank you, Tara. All right. Welcome, everybody. Good morning. Good afternoon. We have an session today revolving around utilizing some of the available object storage APIs inside of our Apex application development platform. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into our agenda. So today we'll start with the basic overview of what is Apex, just to get everyone on the same speed. It's essentially going to be a powerful tool that's integrated with the Oracle database that simplifies development and allows easy integration with some of your database tables and other objects that live within your database. Next, we'll take a quick look at the overview for object storage and explore how that can improve some of your storage capabilities and management of different objects within the cloud. Finally, we have our demo planned where we'll showcase an actual practical application of Oracle Apex and object storage in action. And following that, we'll introduce the Code Innovate program, which is an opportunity for innovation and collaboration with our team here. And of course, at the very end, we'll wrap up with a Q&A session where you can ask questions about anything revolving around Apex, around the demo, or maybe something around Code Innovate. So what is Oracle Apex? Apex is a user-friendly development platform that allows you to create web applications without the extensive coding that you'd find in traditional web developments. It's tightly connected with the Oracle database, so you can easily work with those tables, views, different triggers, all your database objects that live within your Oracle database. And Apex simplifies the process with declarative features and minimal coding. And so it's great for quickly building out those database-driven applications. It can be used to build out desktop and mobile applications from within the Oracle database, and Apex allows you to design, develop, and deploy these applications either on-premise or in the cloud. And so you're able to quickly go in there and build out different types of reports, forms, charts, calendars, cards components. There's many new components, and there's new components being released every year as Apex is an ever-evolving product. And so what does the architecture of Apex really look like? It's fairly simple. So this, in our demo case, we're going to be running Apex in the cloud on autonomous database. So that's what this architecture is referring to. And so Apex works best when it's right alongside the data that it's going to handle. So in this case, a local data source. And so while it can execute SQL statements directly from the data within your Oracle database, Apex can also call on remote Oracle databases through REST-enabled SQL feature. And so from a developer perspective and from an end user perspective, you'll be interacting with Apex all through the browser. So for an end user, they would be accessing Apex simply with a URL and their login credentials. And then from a developer side, you would be accessing Apex also with a URL, but this time you'll be accessing a workspace. And a workspace is just a container for a number of applications, a way to separate your applications within a single database. And so the way the Apex architecture works is that a request is made from the browser. It's sent to the middle tier, so ORDS in this case, and then sent to the database for processing, and then a single request is sent back, which leads to almost instant response times when you're like updating a row or inserting a row into tables. So we did talk about how Apex works best, or it lives directly inside of the Oracle database for local data stores. But you can also pull in data sources from other remote Oracle databases, as you see here in the bottom. So you can use that REST-enabled SQL to query a remote database in real time and then display that data into your application report, into your calendar, into your list of values, whatever it might be. You can make that call in real time. You can also rely on traditional database links on this side, so SQL Net connectivity to a separate database and pull that data in. Of course, you have the local data source, being able to query your database with SQL, PL SQL. And finally, we have external APIs and web sources. So that's mainly what we're going to be focusing on today. We're going to be calling object storage endpoints that are publicly available. So you can find the documentation for what those endpoints are. And I actually have them listed here in a slide. But we'll be making a connection to these endpoints to retrieve data in real time about the objects that we have stored inside of our bucket, inside of our cloud tenancy. And so a quick look at what object storage is and what archive storage is. Object storage is essentially going to be ideal for large amounts of unstructured data. It's a platform that's designed for storing this data. It's going to be reliable, efficient, and can handle any type of content. So analytics, images, videos, PDFs, PowerPoints, you name it, you can store it inside of object storage, and then it's accessible from within the cloud. And so one of the great features of object storage is that you can easily store and retrieve data from the internet or within the cloud platform, and it provides a user-friendly interface for managing your buckets, which is where your objects are stored. And you can start small and scale up as you get more and more data into object storage. And unlike being tied to a specific compute instance, object storage is a regional service, meaning that you can access your data from anywhere, whether you're inside or outside of OCI. And so the endpoints that we're specifically going to be looking at today, I've listed the main three right here. There is list objects, which is going to return a list of all the objects inside a particular bucket that we provide. There's get object, which is going to return a singular object. Here you can see we're specifying the object name inside of the bucket. And finally, you have put object, which is going to be used to actually upload a file to object storage. So we'll specify the namespace, the bucket name, and the object, and put that bucket or put that object into that bucket. There's more information about the object storage endpoints and an overview of object storage at these links here, which we'll probably be sharing in the chat. And just right before we move on also, there is a few bits of terminology I wanted to cover. So we've talked about buckets. Buckets are virtual containers where you can store your data. You can create buckets within a specific region based on your needs, and each bucket will be associated within a compartment that has its individual policies determining what users can take action on that bucket, what users can view the contents of that bucket. Objects, on the other hand, are the actual data that's stored within the buckets, and they can be any type of data regardless of the content. And each object consists of not only the data itself, but also the metadata providing information about that specific object. Finally, we have the namespace, which is kind of your top level container that encompasses all buckets and objects. And when you create an account, you'll receive a unique and unchangeable namespace. And this namespace will span across all your compartments within a region. And so while the bucket names can be chosen by you, they have to be unique within this namespace. And furthermore, your tenancy namespace will remain the same for all OCI regions that you're subscribed to. For those of you who are familiar or just getting started off with Apex, some of you may know that Apex releases 2 major upgrades per year. So we have a spring upgrade and a fall upgrade. So Apex 23.1 was just released in spring of this year, and there are some new components that you should definitely check out. Some of the highlights would be there's new template components that are like a plugin type for building reusable UI components with support for like actions, menus, and other customizable objects inside the page designer. You have PWA push notifications. So if you have users that are using PWAs and have these applications installed on their desktop or mobile device, you now have the ability to send them push notifications, for example, like a reminder to approve a particular task. There's some other improvements in the builder. Finally, the builder is using friendly URLs, and there's better integration with SQL Developer Web. So if you prefer to query your database or write statements inside of SQL Developer Web, because it's what you're used to, you can certainly do that as well with a direct link from Apex now. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get started into our live demo. So I'm going to go ahead and just switch my screen over to my actual Apex workspace. And so here's my Apex workspace. This is what you will see when you first log in. You'll see I don't have any applications or tables just yet, but we'll go ahead and get started here. Let me just organize this by downloading some sample data. So for those of you who aren't familiar, you can grab sample data in Apex pretty easily by just going to SQL Workshop and then sample data sets. And so for today, I'm going to be using this project data set to build out some sample tables and then use that as a base for my application that we'll continue to build. So I'll say install. I'll say next. It's going to install about 7 or 8 tables and then 2 views. And this will take just a couple seconds here. Okay, so we now have our tables installed, and we'll just go ahead and say create application. So this is just a blueprint. We'll call this Cloud Coach. A blueprint or an outline of the application that we're about to build. So I'll go ahead and give it a name. I can choose a theme style. And then Apex goes ahead and creates some sample pages. These have to do with different reports, milestones, tasks, just based on the sample data set I gave it. And then down here, we have some features. And so these features are pretty important and very useful for any app that you're planning to build. But for the purposes of this demo, I'm going to go ahead and deselect them all just so we can keep things a little bit simpler. And so this is going to go ahead and generate an application. I'll walk through the application fairly briefly just so you can see what the current state is and what we're about to create is, or we're about to add to it, I should say. So here's the pages that it created. I'll go ahead and run this application right here. I'm going to open up a new tab. And you're greeted with just a simple home screen, as well as some other reports and charts. The main thing I want to focus on today is going to be this projects tab right here. So in this project tab, you can see in its current state, it's just going to be a list of the projects that are listed inside those sample database tables that we installed. But this is the main page that we're going to be working on and adding to. And so the next step here is actually going to be able to create an object storage bucket within the actual cloud tenancy here. So in order to access object storage, once you get here, you can go ahead and set the navigation, check out storage, and then check out buckets over here. And so you'll see here, I have 2 buckets that are already existing, but for today, we're going to go ahead and create a new bucket. So I'll create a new bucket. We'll call it Cloud Coach, and we'll just say create here, and we'll click into it. And so here's a list of all the objects, inside the bucket. Right now, there's not anything. But the next step I'm going to take is to actually just upload a sample image or file directly inside of this UI here, just so that when I make a call from Apex, I can ensure that I'm calling the right bucket and ensure that I see at least one file inside of that bucket. So I'll go ahead and select files, and I'll select this sample text file here and say upload. Okay, so there's just a single file inside of this bucket, no folders or anything. We're going to go ahead and return to Apex, And we're going to go ahead and set up our web credentials. So to find web credentials, you can go over to Share Components. You can click on Credentials over here, and it'll take you to Web Credentials. You could also potentially just search for credentials in here. For the purposes of this, we're going to be using Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. We give it a name of OCI auth, and it's going to ask us for a few bits of information related to your specific tenancy. So I'll show you where you can gather this information. We'll also copy and paste this here. So for the OCID user ID and the OCID tenancy ID, you can grab those all from your actual Oracle Cloud tenancy back on this tab. If you click this icon in the top right and click on tutorial, click on your profile username, you can then scroll down to the left and click on API keys. And so I'm not going to create a new key here because I think the limit is 3 and I already have my 3 keys here. But you can simply say add key, make sure you download the public and the private key, and Apex or Oracle Cloud will generate a key pair for you. And you can copy all that and store it in a safe location. And that's going to give you your username ID, your tenancy name ID. The private key is right here, and it's also going to give you a fingerprint. So you can copy all that information and then simply paste it into these 4 boxes right here. I've gone ahead and already did that. So you can see here, if I go back to credentials, I already have a credential that's already set up, OCI auth, that's making the call to that environment. Okay, now that that's set up, we can return back into our application. I'll go back into shared components, and I will start to set up our REST data source. This first REST data source, or I guess I should say endpoint that we're going to call, is going to retrieve just a list of all the objects that exist within that object storage bucket that we just created called Cloud Coach. I will say next, and we'll go from scratch. For the REST data source type, we can use Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. Give it a quick name. And for the URL endpoint, this is going to be specific to your environment, but it's going to follow the structure that I showed in my slides at the beginning. So it's going to be the object storage region that you're trying to get access to, your namespace of your tenancy, and then the bucket name that you're specifically trying to get the information from. So in this case, we just created this Cloud Coach bucket. You can go ahead and say next. If this is your first time doing it, it will go ahead and it will create a remote server for you. But in my case, it's already there. And we'll say next one more time. Here, this is, you do need authentication to access this endpoint, which is the web credentials that we just created. So I'll go ahead and say authentication required, and I'll select OCI auth. Alternatively, you could also create web credentials directly in this wizard right here. Now, instead of saying discover, I'm actually going to go into the advanced tab, and I'm just going to pull a few more parameters into this REST data source so that I can display it for our end user. So I'll choose the parameter type as URL query string. The parameter name will be fields. And then for the name of the actual parameters or the value, I'm just going to go ahead and paste this in. So I'm bringing in the name of the object, the size of the object, the time created, and MD5, the information. And we'll say discover. Okay, so there you see the sample text file that I uploaded just a minute ago. So now we know that we're getting access to the right object. You can see it was uploaded here just a couple minutes ago, and we'll say create REST data source. Okay, now that the REST data source is created, let's actually start building on our application. So far, we haven't, this was all generated by Apex, this entire application, but we're going to go ahead and just add on to it. So we took a look at page 3. This is the page right here that lists all the current projects that exist within our data set. What we're going to do is we're going to add actually some sort of pop-up window that allows our users to upload a file. And then that file will then be written to object storage. and then somebody else can view all the objects in object storage and download them. And so I'm going to go over here. Page 3 is where we're going to link to, but first we need to create a new page to actually get access to, or to create that form. So I'll create a new page. I will create it as a form. We can call this upload file. I'm going to use a drawer, so it's going to slide over from the right hand of the screen. And for the data source type, we'll use one of our sample tables, the EBA projects table. And that's it. And we'll say next. It's going to grab the primary key of the table, so the one that's already set, and you can say create. And then here, this page is now set up. I will now go ahead and return to page 3. In page 3, we want to create some sort of button here in order to allow us to link to page 10, the second page that we just created. So I'm going to go ahead and create an action on this cards. You see these projects are just a cards type. I will create an action. That action will be a button, and we'll say upload file. We'll want to redirect to a page, and we'll redirect our users to page 10. And in order to populate the form on page 10 correctly, we need to pass the form a primary key. And so from this page, we're going to pass to P10. This is the primary key on the form. And the value of P10 is going to be the ID that's coming from our source table on page 9. So we'll save that. We'll run that. And you can see here now we have a button. And each button is all going to link us to page 10, but each button will display different information. So you can see this is some information about this specific project. And likewise, if I was to click this button, it's a separate project. Now let's go ahead and actually clean up this form here. So I'll just click here at the bottom where it says edit page 10. There's many items on here that I don't really need to show to our end user. So like the updated columns, the completed dates, the description, and the ID. I will go ahead and hide all these on this page. So let me, let's see here. Select these again. And I'll change the type. They're all different types. That's why it's a highlighted blue, but I'll just change them to hidden. Save that. And then I'm going to go ahead and add one more page item here at the bottom. So this P10 file browser is going to be what we use to allow our users to actually upload a local file from their computer. And Apex has a built-in file browser. So this will handle all the looking into your local storage, processing the file. Once a user uploads a file here, it's stored in this table, this temporary table called Apex application temp files. And then it'll be written to object storage with the process that we're going to create in just a minute. So that's taken care of now. We now can take a look at what our new updated page looks like. So let's close out of this. We'll give this a refresh and we'll say upload file. So now we just have a few fields, the name of the project, whoever the project lead is, and an option to upload a file. Next, if we were to upload a file here, it's going to be written to that temp files, but it's not going to go anywhere else, and it's ultimately going to disappear. So we need to add a process on this page that once a person submits this page, it takes whatever file is here and writes it to object storage. So again, I'm going to go down here and say edit page 10. I'm going to head over to the processing tab, and I'm going to create a new process. I will drag it up between these two, and we'll call this one upload file. We do have to enter our PL SQL. This is what's going to actually handle it, but I'm going to add a success message here. And in order for that success message to display properly, I'm going to stop the dialog from closing immediately after we submit the page. So I'm just going to set this type as never so that this action, this close dialog does not fire. And that way we're prompted with the correct success message if this was successful. And now we have the actual PL SQL code. So I'm going to copy it over here from my notepad, but I'll try to copy it in sections. And I've also gone ahead and commented out the code as best I can so that hopefully we can understand as we go through this. So the first is just to declare a variable. So we have variables for the URL we're requesting, the name of the object, the name of the file, the name of the project. Then we'll go ahead and actually start our procedure. So we'll begin our procedure. We'll do some small things like getting the files out of the page item, assigning the project name. So that's the name of the project that we specifically clicked on, and then looping through and getting all the files out of the file browser. In our case, we're only going to be uploading a single file at a time, but you certainly can allow your users to upload multiple files at once. Then we'll come down here. We will see here. Here. Okay. Let's walk through the rest of this. So then we'll begin. We'll select the contents of that file into that table I mentioned earlier. So application temp files. We're going to modify the file name here. This is not a required step by any means. You could simply upload the file based on the name that the user uploaded or the name of the file that the user uploaded. But what I'm doing here is essentially prefixing the name of the file that the user uploaded with the name of the project that the user clicked on. So I'm just concatenating the two together. So I'm doing project name / file name. And the reason for this is essentially that when you upload a file to object storage, it reads, if the file name has a / in it, it's going to read the first half of that file name as a folder. So if the folder does not exist for this specific project, object storage is going to create a folder and then place my file inside that folder. If that folder does exist, object storage is just going to place the file in the existing folder. So it gives us a little bit more structure to the files that we're uploading. Then this is the actual URL we're building. So this is my object storage environment, the bucket I'm accessing, and the new name of the file. And finally, here we're making the actual request using Apex Web Service make REST request. And you can see here, this is where I'm calling in the authentication for my web credentials that I created earlier. Finally, we have the end of our code, which is just going to be an exception. So I'll just paste that here. That all went well. We should be able to validate that. Perfect. And then we will say, okay. Perfect. Let's save that and let's test that so far and see if that's working. So I'm going to go ahead and close this out. I'll say upload file. I'll pick a local file. This time we'll pick this SVG and say apply changes. Okay, Apex says file uploaded, but let's definitely verify if that's the case. So we can return over here. I'll go back to our object storage bucket, call Cloud Coach. And sure enough, you can see configure web environment, which was the name of the project that we selected initially. And then if you open up that folder, the SVG file that we uploaded. And so if I was to pick a different project, let's say develop a bug application, and picked a different file, let's say this PowerPoint, and apply changes. And we'll come back over here and refresh. We now have a second folder that contains that file. Okay, so far we've created our application. We've created a form for our users to be able to upload files using the object storage API and the web credentials that we created earlier. Now we just have to allow our users to be able to download those files that already exist within object storage. And so to do that, I'm actually going to create a new page here. So I'll create another page. This one will be we'll use a classic report and we'll just call it download. The page mode is going to be normal and the source. So earlier we used the projects table as our source. In this case, we're actually going to call a REST data source in real time. Keep in mind when using REST data sources or REST-enabled SQL, you could also synchronize this to a local table and call it from your local database. So in the case that you're calling a large amount of data from a REST data source, instead of having that call made on page load, you could sync that REST data source to a local table, let's say every morning at 8 a.m. And then you'll have up-to-date data and it will improve the performance of your Apex pages. Okay, so here's just a simple report that's calling from our object storage bucket. Maybe something like this we don't want to display to our end users. So I'm going to go ahead and hide that column. I'll save that, and then we can just run the report. So here you can see the two files that we uploaded, as well as the original sample file that we created at the very beginning. I'm actually going to go ahead and upload just a couple more files here, just so we can have a little bit more to work with. So I'll upload PNG. And then I'll also upload, let's see what else we have, this PDF here. Okay, so those are all different files. And then one more time, just for a folder that already exists. So we already have this folder created, and I'll upload this MP3 file here. Okay, so now you can see in the buckets, if I hit refresh, we have a couple more folders, and then you can see in this one, I believe I uploaded 2 objects. So the first object, the folder didn't exist, so it created the folder and put the object in there. The second object, the folder did exist, so it just put the object in that folder. And if we run this page, this is page 11, our classic report one more time, you can see that now it is real-time data for all of our object storage objects inside of our buckets. Okay, so the next stop or the next part is to actually do a download process. It's just another PL SQL procedure. There's many places you could run this procedure. You could do it on a button. You could do it on page load. I'm going to do it on page load for now, but you certainly don't have to do it the exact same way. Let's go ahead and create a new page here. We'll create it as a blank page. Call this one download. SQL, and that's right. We'll just leave it just like that. We don't need any entries for this because they're only going to be accessing this page through a link. And so we will leave it like that. Let's see here. I think this should actually be page 12. I think it's defaulting to page 13 because I opened it twice, but I'll change it to page 12. On page 12, I'm going to go ahead and just create a page item that is P12 object name. So this is going to hold the name of the object that the user wants to download. And I can change that to hidden since we don't actually have to display that to our end users. Then I'm going to go ahead and add a before header process here. So I can click here and say add process. And here we'll actually download the file. Under this PL SQL code, I'm also going to copy and paste. So at first, we just need to declare our variables. The next step is to build out our URL very similar to what we did before. The only difference is now we're passing in an object name as opposed to, we're trying to retrieve an object name as opposed to passing in an object name for a file. Next, we'll make the actual request here. And so it's what we did before, that same Apex web service make REST request. This is the URL we defined above. It's a GET request and then our authentication. Then we have just a way to raise an exception if there's an error, if we don't get a good status code. And then we'll go through, we will get the content headers from the response. So this is going through and getting the content headers, looking for the exception, getting the content length. And finally, I'll just copy and paste the rest of this here as well, where we're going to be able to I'll put a space there so we can see what I just pasted there. This piece is where we're going to get the header type, the MIME type, which is going to allow us to open up the file. So if you download a PDF, it helps your computer to know that you should probably open that PDF with like Adobe instead of like, I don't know, like Photoshop, for example. And then we'll grab the file name. Again, this part isn't required. This is something that I added in after the fact just to take out the folder name from the object name. And so you know how we uploaded it with the folder name or the project name to begin with. I'm now using substring and instring to find where the slash is in the file name. Then I'm using substring to retrieve everything after that slash so that I can just receive the file name back to my local computer. And then we're going to just actually download the object here and stop the Apex engine. So I'll validate that. Awesome. We'll save that. And now I'm going to return to page 11. This is going to be our classic report on what we created earlier. These are the files that these are the columns that we had earlier coming from our REST data source. I'm going to go ahead and create another virtual column here, which we can call the download link. The type of for this column is going to be a link, and then we will actually download link to the target here. In the case that you're not storing objects within, or you're not storing files within object storage, but you're storing objects within your actual database, you can follow a very similar process, but just choose the virtual column as like a download blob. And then you can download the blob column directly from your database as opposed to object storage if you went that route. So we need to define our link here. So when they click this link where we send your end users, I'm going to go ahead and redirect them to page 12. And there is one item we need to pass over, and that would be the name of the object. So to page 12, we need to pass over the object name. And from page 11, we'll pass over the name of the object in that row. And so I think that's it. We can say OK. We'll give it a different link text. So it's like maybe like a pencil icon, and save that report. Okay, if that's all working, we can hopefully follow the process from beginning to end. So I'll go back to projects. I will upload a file here under develop new reporting apps. This one will be a, we'll go back to the PNG. I think some of the other ones take a bit to load. So sample one PNG under develop new reporting apps. Then we will go to this table, which now we have develop new reporting apps, sample PNG, and I can click this icon and hopefully it downloads that file directly to my desktop, which you see here. And so you can do the same thing for any of these files. If I did the MP3, it's going to download the MP3, and same thing with like this sample SVG. And so that's the basic steps on how you can take these two scripts from going through and uploading a file directly into object storage into this bucket, and then coming down and retrieving the file and downloading the file locally here. Of course, you can always control who sees what in Apex. So for example, if there's a bucket that is only for particular users, you can limit who is able to download files from that bucket. Currently, I'm using one set of web credentials in order to authorize this whole process. But you could set up different web credentials so that only certain users are able to authorize, review, or download the objects that they can in object storage in the exact same fashion that you would if someone's actually inside of object storage. Someone's actually in this menu. You can set up very similar policies in Apex and procedures so that they're only able to download objects that are available to them inside of their Oracle Cloud tenancy. Okay, so that's kind of a quick intro and walkthrough of how we can set something like this up. I'm actually going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen here, and I'm going to pass it over to Sean, who's going to talk a little bit about our Code to Innovate program.
Thanks, Shane. Let's get started. Well, first and foremost, let me just thank you all for attending today's cloud coaching session. Just a quick introduction. My name is Sean Cartwright. I am a cloud engineer and a program manager at the Code Innovate program. So I want to take the opportunity to talk to you all about the program here at Oracle that Shane, Max, Chip, and I are a part of. To explain our program, we liken it to an activity that our manager has done with his kids when they were younger. So most every year, he would take them on a trip to Legoland, which is just outside of Chicago. So out of all the attractions and activities at Legoland, their favorite thing to do is to participate in the Lego Master Builder class. So during this class, all of the kids were given their own clear plastic bag of disassembled Lego pieces without any instructions, much like you would typically find in Lego sets that you buy in the stores. So the adults in the front of the room, pictured here in green shirts, are known as true Lego master builders. So over the course of the event, they work with the attendees on the concept of brick interlocking and how to create smooth faces on objects using Legos. So on this particular day, they created these little penguins with earmuffs. So the goal of the class was first and foremost for the kids to have fun. However, in a very short amount of time, they learned to build with Legos in ways they may have never thought about before in a creative environment that allowed them to try new things. So we tell that story because in its simplest form, this is the essence of what we do here at the Code Innovate program. So we align our Oracle Cloud master builders like Shane to help your employees work with technologies in Oracle Cloud to create solutions in ways that you may have never thought about before, or that you were just needing a guiding hand to get a jump start. So what it is a 5-half-day online event through Zoom. And this event centers around developing together, or what we like to call co-development. So this is not Oracle building the proof of concept solution for you. We're going to be building it with you. So the goal is for our engineers to coach you in a collaborative way that facilitates rapid knowledge transfer. So during this time, your team's going to brainstorm on a business challenge that you identify. You're going to identify tasks to complete, and you're going to form an overarching project use case goal and partner with us to develop a minimally viable product by the end of the week. So whether you're novices in OCI or pros in OCI, Code Innovate is all about prototyping a solution for your business problems and upskilling your technical skill set at the same time. So the way it typically works is that you bring us your use cases. We want to work on things that you guys want to work on. We'll jointly determine whether they're a good fit or not for the week-long sprint format. And by working with your team, you're going to get hands-on experience solving your own use case with the coaching of our Oracle Cloud specialists. And together, we're going to make a first pass at getting you on the fast track to solving your business challenge and getting you upskilled. So this is what we like to call first pass prototype. It's 20 hours of a sprint. We'll accomplish as much as we can, and we'll jointly agree that at the end of the week, you should have a working prototype. So the minimum requirements for the event are as follows. So we have 3 or more developers or builders at the event. We use the term developers loosely, as they can also be business users as well. Anyone who wants to build in the cloud is welcome. And especially if you have a more complex technical use case, we'll need folks from your end who have the requisite skill sets needed, especially if it's something to do with hard coding. But other than that, if they're especially with tools like Apex, we do events with line of business users as well as very technical, coding web programmer users. So we take everyone and meet you where you're at. We ask for a 20-hour time commitment, which roughly translates to 5 half days. Typically, these are 4-hour sessions for 5 days. Bring your own use cases because, like I said, we want to work on things that you guys want to work on. 3 weeks of lead time just ensures that we get the correct resourcing for the Oracle side and for yourselves as well. We have formal cadence meetings typically once a week for 30 minutes leading up to the event to discuss use case discovery and logistics. We offer structured learning sessions similar to what you received today, a sort of Apex 101, if you will. We do these, they're 45 minutes approximately with 15 minutes Q&A, but we'll do those, around any of the services we're going to be using at the event. We'll do a demo session on them so you get familiarized with the tool. And last but not least, there's no fee to do the event beyond the time commitment for both of our teams and the cost of the cloud services that you consume to build out the use cases. So that's about it. If you're interested, chat in. If you'd like to reach out to us later, you can reach us at the codeinnovate_US_GRP@oracle.com email address. You can share in the chat what your email is if you'd like us to reach out to you, and we can get started. So thank you all so much for your time today. I appreciate it.